I believe last week, and maybe you can include it as the in the show notes here. I texted you a photo of me crying late at night while reading the
Mm-hmm.
Jeopardy Wikipedia page.
You did that. Hello, and welcome to Can't Let It Go. It's an audio PowerPoint party. My name is Matt, and I use he, him pronouns.
My name is AC, and I use they, them pronouns.
And we are back for this month's episode. AC, I believe, is going to talk to me about Jeopardy. And I will be honest, AC, I don't know how you're going to make a whole episode out of that, but I do know that Jeopardy means a lot to you, so I believe in you.
Matt, you know what? I started with thinking the same thing. I was like, how will I talk about Jeopardy for even 30 minutes? And then I started to take my notes and I was like, okay, yeah, this is going to be strap in, guys. I'm going to try to rein myself in, not fully, not in a way where we don't get the vibe of how much I do know about this, but that it's not overwhelming or uninteresting to you, because I think that I know more than, not just more than the average person, but more than is maybe like reasonable to know about Jeopardy. So
I mean, I riffed at you about riffs in
That's
Bridge
true.
Over
Okay,
Troubled Water
okay,
last
okay,
time.
okay.
I just did that off the dome, looked up some YouTube videos ahead of time.
I don't know why I'm saying this. Like, this isn't the entire premise of the show. So, I mean, without further ado, we could get into it. But I do think that you have...
Yeah. So the weird thing about today is that AC and I are recording at my house, but we're not in the same room.
Hello from the other room.
Because I don't know how to mic a live podcast.
And honestly, neither do I. So if there's any weird echo, it's me from roughly 80 feet away.
Correct. Across the living room in my husband's office with my dog sitting outside the door, wondering why her friend went away.
It's fine, Phoenix. I promise I'll come back in a minute.
But no, we've been sitting in my living room, AC finishing notes for this episode, and me playing the game Blueprints, which I mostly want to talk about because Chase made a joke that he feels like every podcast this week is going to be, every podcast on TWG is going to be screaming about this game. You watched me play a little bit. I'm not going to do a full thing. This is not a Can't Put It Down episode, but
Could be.
I'm having a great time. I love these like mystery puzzle games where you kind of start the game and you don't even know what's going on, really. Like, and the point is to not only figure out like what's going on, but also like how to play the game and like the overall mystery of the story, and just like complete puzzle box games. I love those. This is that, like, plus some of the roguelite stuff that like Balatro or Hades are doing, right? And I'm having a great time with it. I have been upset here and there. You watched me do like 4 runs, and a couple times me just being like, well, this one was bullshit.
Yeah. It looks really cool, though. I love what you did give me, like the information you did give me about the premise made it really easy to just like accept, like, okay, it's a mystery. You don't really know what's going on, and to just kind of like watch along. And I like the idea that it is like an evolving puzzle, right? Like that you get more information, but it's still a puzzle each time.
Yeah. I mean, the whole premise is that you've been like bequeathed your grand uncle's estate, essentially. And the thing about this place is that the rooms in the place are always changing. There are 45 rooms, and your goal is to find the 46th. And you're uncovering secrets, and basically you start over every day, and the rooms are back to where they were. Everything's reset. But because it's also a roguelite, there are things that break that expectation as well.
Yeah.
And I'm starting to get to the point where I'm like seeing a lot of those like permanent upgrades and permanent changes, which tells me that I'm progressing the mystery forward.
Cool.
So in that way, it's those two things are married well. I think where it kind of falls apart in some cases is like you can just have a bad run due to RNG, and like there's things you can do to address that. But for like, I don't know, I feel like I'm playing optimally right now. I've figured out like the optimal pattern. I even found like the in-game strategy guide.
Nice.
That was like, here's what you should do. Always value gems. Always go wide before you go, tall. And I'm doing that, and still I find myself like wrapping around in circles and being like, well, that runs over.
Yeah.
But no, having a good time. And I think a lot of the TJPG Discord is playing this, and a lot of the people on shows are also playing it.
Heck yeah. The worst garbage online for all your blueprint takes.
Yeah. Hey, you went to some Jeopardy event.
Yes.
And I imagine that is what this is going to be about in some part. But I also imagine that you have some plans.
Yeah.
Go ahead and jump in.
Gosh, where to even begin with Jeopardy? This is Jeopardy. That has been the opener to Jeopardy since 1984. Announced by Johnny Gilbert, hosted by Alex Trebek since 1984. I think of Jeopardy as both interesting to me because it is a trivia game show, which I love, and maybe is the reason, right, why I love trivia game shows. But also, I really admire Jeopardy as a brand and like a culturally iconic brand identity, and like the entire experience around Jeopardy, everything to do with it is fascinating to me. So like my question for you, before I give you all of my info about what I did last night, about how much time I spend thinking about and watching Jeopardy on a regular basis, is like, what is your relationship to Jeopardy, Matt? Like, have you watched an episode, a handful of episodes? Have I made you talk to me about Jeopardy? Is it just like a format for review games in your classes? Like, what's your relationship to Jeopardy?
I just want to pause and recognize the phrase that you said. I really value the Jeopardy brand.
Yeah.
Which is a real phrase that you said.
I'm sorry.
And it made me chuckle internally, and I had to do everything inside myself not to immediately interrupt you.
It's just marketing brain. I'm poisoned, okay? Listen. But it's true, okay?
Yeah.
It's a very, very cool.
Yeah. I grew up watching Jeopardy, not every night, but most nights, when I was at my grandma's house.
Okay.
So you know this. But the just short story for the listener is that like I lived roughly part-time. We don't need to get into it with between my dad's house and my grandma's house. And for the long periods of time that I would live at my grandma's house, she had certain things that she did at home. My dad had certain things that he did at home.
Yeah.
And when I was staying with her, when my dad was out of town, we would watch Jeopardy most nights. Or it would be on and I would be doing something, that kind of thing. So I've watched a lot of Jeopardy.
Okay.
Mostly like 96 to 2008.
Okay.
And I've maybe watched like 2 or 3 episodes with you.
Sure.
Since then, in college maybe.
We did definitely watch this in college together because February 2011 is when the IBM special aired. And that was when Ken Jennings, who is now the host of the show, and Brad Rutter played Watson, the IBM supercomputer. And they competed against and tried to like beat the computer. They did not beat the computer. Spoiler alert, that did happen. I mean, this is like a
this is known
15 years ago now. But the that was happening when we were in college. So I was definitely clued in then. I think, Matt, my next question is, do you remember how annoying is it to watch Jeopardy with me?
Oh, I do not remember.
Okay,
it's been
great.
it's been long enough since I've watched Jeopardy at all.
Okay.
Much less with you, that I just frankly do not remember.
Okay. So I don't think that I don't think that I'm annoying watching Jeopardy, quite frankly. I do think I'm annoying generally, but that's not here or there. The thing about watching Jeopardy is like I am a person who enthusiastically is playing along at home every time I'm watching Jeopardy. because of, who we are as people, I do definitely wind up in moments where Jeopardy is background noise. But if Jeopardy is on the TV, my ideal form of watching it is putting everything else away, and I am locked in and playing along. I love Jeopardy, and I actually am currently a daily watcher of Jeopardy. So I'm a few episodes behind right now because I have been watching Ken Jennings's original 2004 run, which is rerunning on Game Show Network. But like, I am DVRing and watching Jeopardy every day, and I have been for years at this point. Jeopardy is like a unique sort of show because it is a game show and because of the competition element. I mean, I assume because of the competition element. I don't actually know why it's not on streaming regularly anywhere, right? I assume it's complicated. There are lawyers involved, there's money involved or whatever. It's not a show that is like streaming. There have been runs that they have put on different streaming platforms at different times, but there are not reruns of Jeopardy on a regular cadence. In part because the show just does air every day on network television, right? So why would you need the rerun if there's a new episode for you to watch the same day? Jeopardy is on all year round. So it is in a full year syndication. Each season runs a whopping something like 128 episodes per season, because it's a 5 days a week show, and 46 days a year is when they do the taping in Los Angeles for the regular Jeopardy tournament. Now, Matt, do you know that there's more than just the regular Jeopardy tournament? Do you know, like, Tournament of Champions, teen tournament, college tournament?
I didn't realize that those weren't just like interstitial events.
Okay.
That makes sense.
So some of them are interstitial events, and this is something that has changed about Jeopardy over time. So it's worth saying that, like, 1984, when Alex Trebek began hosting, the Alex Trebek years are what really defined Jeopardy for me, right? And during those years, programming looked different than it does now. Jeopardy is a powerhouse because it has figured out how to continue to make itself a culturally relevant brand, or a culturally relevant show. The categories are always touching on like pop culture and historical knowledge. There is like both a very, very deep, very, very specific, very, very hard type of question. And then there are things that are like so straightforward that you can't believe that people missed them. And we'll get to some of those greatest moments of what the fuck is happening on my TV screen later in our conversation. But Alex Trebek wasn't the first host of Jeopardy, but for me, he's who made it what it is. I, like you, watched Jeopardy growing up. In my mind, I watched it every day. I was obsessed with it. It was important to me to be home from school in time for Jeopardy, because in my memory, at least in high school, it aired at 4:30 locally, and I didn't grow up with a DVR, so it wasn't something I could record. I had to catch it live, or I didn't really catch it at all. And this is like, Jeopardy is also like an iconic, like, record-winning show. It's won a record 44 Daytime Emmy Awards. Alex Trebek won maybe 8 or 10 awards himself for outstanding game show host. Like, this is a show that is a cultural powerhouse. And I think part of why I asked what your experience with Jeopardy was, and I included the example of, it being the format for review, is because Jeopardy is such a powerful structure of a game that it is constantly replicated, right? There are moments on other game shows where contestants will answer things in the form of a question. And on other game shows, hosts will have to say, this is not Jeopardy. You do not have to answer in the form of a question, right? But that iconic defining thing, there's one rule of Jeopardy, and it is that you have to answer in the form of a question. is so powerful. And then there's the category structure, right? Upping these antes within, Jeopardy, then Double Jeopardy, then Final Jeopardy, or if you're in Celebrity Jeopardy, the very ultra special Triple Jeopardy category that exists only in the Celebrity Jeopardy tournament, right? You have the daily doubles on the board, which add, this layer of complexity to the overall wagering part of the game, where you can suddenly jump forward in your score if you wager correctly, or you can totally lose. One of my very favorite Jeopardy facts is that the second episode of the Alex Trebek run, all three players went all in on Double Jeopardy and they all got it wrong. It's the only game where the total score across all three players was 0.
Oh my God.
So no one won that episode. Like everyone lost. And like that's just something that is so like could only happen on Jeopardy, right? That like there's just like a total goose egg across the board. Gosh, I'm overflowing with thoughts. So part of why I was like, okay, Matt, it's finally time to do this episode is not just that I have been watching and thinking about and like filling my brain with Jeopardy as so much happens in the world around us. But last night I got the opportunity to go to the Inside Jeopardy live show, which Inside Jeopardy is the Jeopardy podcast. If you are a Jeoparhead like me, then you are listening to the Jeopardy podcast. So one of the funniest things that the Jeopardy team does is they put Jepper in front of anything that is related to Jeopardy. So it's like March 30th, which is the day that in 1984 that the first episode aired, they call that's Jeopardy. And on Jeopardy is when anyone can take the anytime test. Anyway, we'll get into like how you get on the show in a minute.
I just for the audience at home, they said Jeoparhead.
Yeah.
And I unfortunately did not give you an audio cue for the face that I made.
Matt gave me several large blinks. So there's Inside Jeopardy, and so the live show is a taping of the podcast episode, and then an actual game of Jeopardy interactive. So a very, very cool phone game experience where folks use their phones to submit their answers in real time, pick questions from the board, and that section of the show was hosted by Ken Jennings himself. Part of why this was happening is because Ken Jennings is in Washington, D.C. He was the Grand Marshal of the Cherry Blossom Festival Parade today. So that is part of why this tour stop happened here in the way that it did. But Matt, it was an absolutely delightful show, and it really encapsulated a lot of what I love about Jeopardy. The first part of the show started by celebrating all of the Jeopardy champions who were in the room. And if you watch a lot of Jeopardy like me, one of the things that you know is that the DMV, the number of players who come from the DMV is crazy. I swear every episode somebody is from Alexandria, Virginia, or Silver Spring, Maryland, or even Washington, D.C., right? But like tons of people from the DMV area play this show. So there were lots of former contestants and winners in the room. And they started by celebrating that, encouraging everyone to stand and like giving rounds of applause. And then they did something that they've really, really successfully done over the last, I think really since Ken's run, which is capitalize on fan favorites to build power and to build like presence for the brand. And so last night, there were two, in addition to Ken, there were two, and then a surprise third former Jeopardy contestants and winners, Drew Goins, who has a real Cinderella story with Jeopardy that I'll talk about when we talk about the tournaments and all of that, and Sam Buttry, who is considered to be one of the best players, even though he's not in like the top 10 for consecutive wins. He is a fan favorite. He is just a genuine genuinely nice human being. And he famously kind of coined a catchphrase for the last clue on the board that many people now repeat, which is he says, "Bring it," to get the last clue off the board. So my brain is running in a million directions. I'm going to say that so many times this episode because my wheels are spinning. I am thinking about Jeopardy. Where I want to start, no, I've already started. We're way past the start at this point. Where I want to go from here is to talk about what Alex Trebek means to me and his stage presence as a host meant to me. And then like the change of host and how Ken Jennings became the host of the show. So Alex Trebek as a host is someone who like, it's one of the few people who like shows that I watched for all of my life. Like I watched Jeopardy at every stage and phase of my life. So I feel like some people think this about like, I feel like Grey's Anatomy is a similar show, or even ER, right? Shows that are ones that ran for 20 plus years, right? Jeopardy has been on the air longer than I have been alive, and it has been a part of my life the entire time. So in many ways, it felt like Alex Trebek watched me grow up, or I grew up with Alex Trebek. And when he was diagnosed with cancer, and then eventually announced that he was going to be leaving the show, I was actually like genuinely sad in a way that I don't often experience around celebrity. And I believe last week, and maybe you can include it as in the show notes here, I texted you a photo of me crying late at night while reading the Jeopardy Wikipedia page.
You did that.
Because I was reading about the relationship between Alex Trebek and Ken Jennings. And it's going to make me weepy now. But like, so when Alex was the host, Ken came on, Ken played for his, still record holding 74 game winning streak. This was almost the entire year of 2004. Ken Jennings could not be defeated as a player. And if you watch it, it is so fascinating to see the kind of like spunk and the spark that Ken Jennings has in those quip moments, in their like talkback moments. He really understands the format, even as a young player. And you can see Alex and his relationship build and grow over time. And what we know from contestants, what contestants say all the time is like that the environment behind the scenes at Jeopardy is extremely collegial. That there is a clear understanding of like friendship and relationship and excitement. That when you see people excitedly like shaking hands or hugging each other or congratulating each other, that it's not something that people put on for the show. It is genuine camaraderie. And you see this camaraderie build between Ken and Alex. And, because of Ken's records, many people sort of started to see him as potentially the natural successor to Alex. Alex passed away in 2021, and it was a really heartbreaking moment. What made me cry when I was reading the Wikipedia page was the reminder that Alex Trebek's widow, when Ken Jennings became the host of the show, gifted Ken Jennings a pair of the cufflinks that Alex used to wear on the show, for like as a host gift, which I think is just so sweet. Now this wasn't like an A to B thing. It wasn't an immediate Ken Jennings is the new host. They did do a round of guest hosts, and they made it seem like they were testing people out. And there was a short period of time where Mayim Bialik and Ken Jennings were co-hosts of the show. And the idea was that Mayim would do some of these more special events and some of the primetime broadcasts, as well as some of the regular shows, and Ken would do some of them. I have lots of thoughts about why that might be true. I'm not a big Mayim Bialik fan for many reasons, both personal and political. But ultimately, she wound up leaving the show because of, well, the publicly stated reason was because of the writer's strike. So she chose to walk off the show then, and Ken became the full-time host. Now, it's worth saying that, the daytime TV during the writer's strike is like a whole daytime game shows are a whole other category of shows from the kinds of shows that the writer's strike were on. So like, this is not a moment for us to be like, Ken Jennings is a strike breaker. That's not what's happening here, right? The Jeopardy crew was not on strike. So that's just sort of the like window dressing for how we get to the moment where last night I'm looking at Ken Jennings at this show. Mm-hmm. Let's see. What's the other context that you need to know? Oh, yes, the special guest for this. The special guest was last year's winner of Celebrity Jeopardy, Lisa Ann Walter. So Celebrity Jeopardy is a primetime version of Jeopardy with famous people, also famously spoofed on SNL and in other cultural venues. And gosh, I love Lisa Ann Walter. Again, please do not remind me about any of the political reasons that I should not love Lisa Ann Walter. I know them. I understand. But if you are like, who is Lisa Ann Walter? She was Chessie in The Parent Trap.
That's how I know
she
her
is
originally.
on Abbott Elementary currently as Ms. Chimenti, and she is just absolutely hilarious. She won Celebrity Jeopardy, and then she was supposed to be in the Tournament of Champions, but she wasn't. Again, I'll get to that in a minute when I talk about the structure of the actual tournaments. The last thing that I want to talk about before I get there is, have you ever considered like trying out for Jeopardy? Is this a thing that anybody has ever like...
People have told, I mean, growing up as a smart kid, people tell you to do shit all the time.
Yeah.
But I am not a good trivia, I'm not good at trivia generally because my knowledge is very deep and not very broad. Who was I talking to? I was talking to somebody yesterday and I said, it would be pretty difficult to get me to go on like any game show or like reality show. It would have to be a lot of money. The show that I've spent the most time thinking about maybe auditioning for is like when I was a kid, American Idol, and as an adult, The Voice.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
But even then, I'm like so risk averse. I'm like, but I need to keep my job.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I can't like go quit for 6 months to go be on TV.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, you know what? I really relate. People ask me a lot, like as someone who's a huge fan of Jeopardy, as someone who loves trivia games, would I ever try out for Jeopardy? And the answer is no. I don't think I could handle the pressure of being on TV. Mm-hmm. Because the other thing about Jeopardy is that like it is a physical game as much as it is a mental game. You are standing behind the podium for 30 minutes at a time. And the way that the buzzer system works is there is like a light facing the contestants that the viewer doesn't see. And when the question is read, you have to wait for the light to come on to then buzz. And that buzzing is something that people talk about having to practice. Even people who practice talk about how it's just different in studio, or like you blank in the moment, the pressure of the cameras and all of that like makes it so that I actually I don't think I would thrive on Jeopardy. I don't think I would do well. Even if at home I know all of the answers when I play along, that's not necessarily like what I would want to do with my time. I want to go into sort of our double Jeopardy round here. And in our double Jeopardy round, I want to talk to you about the Jeopardy tournaments, because this is actually the thing that in the last few years I have loved the most about the Jeopardy tournaments, or about Jeopardy, because I think that it did so much to reinvigorate and bring to the forefront these fan favorites. So the Tournament of Champions is the Jeopardy postseason that has always existed. So Jeopardy is currently in its 41st season. At the end of each of these seasons, they run the Tournament of Champions. There have been previous versions of how you get into the Tournament of Champions.
I was going to ask.
Yes, but right now, the way that you qualify is that you win at least 4 games. So when you have played 5 games, you qualify for the Tournament of Champions. You do not have to win your 5th game. You simply have to play 5 games. So the Tournament of Champions has always existed. It has always been like the best of the previous season. It is only the previous, like it's a certain window of qualifying time that includes the previous season. It does not include the previous Tournament of Champions, and it does not include more than one season usually. There have been a few exceptions to this for a million different reasons. Not a million different reasons if there are only a few exceptions, but there have been a few exceptions to this for a few different reasons.
Yeah.
And also just that the game has changed over time. It's also worth saying that this is something that's really interesting to me because the format for the Tournament of Champions was actually devised by Alex Trebek. He wasn't just the host of this game or the personality of this game. Alex Trebek loved Jeopardy, and he loved the game of Jeopardy. So Tournament of Champions is 10 consecutive episodes. It's 5 quarterfinal games, 3 semifinal games, and then a final that is played over 2 games where the scores are combined. Before the Tournament of Champions happens, there are a few new tournaments that they have introduced. Your thing of the tournament seemed like little vignettes, that was true when interstitials, that was what you said. That was true when it was the teen tournament, the college tournament, the teachers tournament, and I think the seniors tournament. Those are no longer games that are regularly held, tournaments that are regularly held. Instead, they've started this other format. They've not said that they'll never bring these back, but some of what killed these was COVID. Some of what killed them was like interest and like primetime real estate. But, those are the interstitials of our past. Now, the first thing to happen after in the Jeopardy postseason is the Second Chance tournament. I am obsessed with the Second Chance tournament. The Second Chance tournament, Matt, is it is the top 20 or something people, 21 people, I think. Whatever an odd number is, because there are 3 contestants in every episode. Right. 21, the top 21 scorers who did not win an episode. So this is people who maybe they got Final Jeopardy wrong, or they got one Double Jeopardy wrong, or Daily Double wrong, and they did not win. Sometimes by $1, sometimes by a lot, right? These are people who it's like, you were good at Jeopardy. You just weren't quite good enough that episode. Because Jeopardy, more than being a game of smarts, more than being a game of trivia, is also a game of chance. You can get up there and it can be categories, even if you studied for hours and hours and hours, that you didn't study. Jeopardy fans will know the joke of the dreaded opera category. That is a thing that they tell you. If you are going to go on Jeopardy, you should study opera. You should study geography. You should study world flags, because those are categories that will come up over and over. And opera is one where people often do not have just sort of like a baseline general knowledge around opera and classical music to get them through a category. So in the Second Chance tournament, highest score among non-winners. And then they compete in their round robins. And because of how people will advance in these episodes, a similar 10 episode structure with the 21 players, people will qualify for the Tournament of Champions because they will win 4 games, right? So your finalists from Second Chance now actually wind up, 2 of them wind up in Champions Wildcard. Champions Wildcard is for people who, so in addition to the 2 Second Chance winners, Champions wild card is 13 randomly or highest scoring 1 and 2 day winners. So people who did not win 4 or more episodes, but won 1 or 2 episodes. Then they go through Champions wild card. The champion from Second Chance, the champion from Champions wild card, and the champion from the JIT, which is the Jeopardy Invitational Tournament. We'll talk about that in a second. Though all those people qualify for the Tournament of Champions. Now, the most fun thing about the Second Chance and the Champions wild card is that they do not necessarily limit those the Champions wild card to most recent seasons. So you have people who come back for Champions wild card and in the newer seasons of Second Chance who played ages ago, who played as teenagers, who played 30 years ago. And it's really exciting to hear people like come back and be like, oh yes, this is fun again for me, right? After all of that, they do the Jeopardy Invitational Tournament. The Jeopardy Invitational Tournament is like fan favorites, people they want to invite back, right? It is invitational in format. Some of the greats, some new greats. It's a fun time. And then there is the Tournament of Champions. The Tournament of Champions is so stressful, honestly, because when they get to the finals for the Tournament of Champions, it is really like this moment where you are watching the best of the best. Something that is always impressive in Jeopardy and that the audience often applauds for is like if you can run a category. But Tournament of Champions games are games where, one, the Clue Crew is pulling out their most difficult questions. I just realized I said Clue Crew like you knew that that's what the team
I actually
that
do
calls.
know that
Okay,
one.
great. Amazing. See? Another cultural footprint, Matt. The Clue Crew is who writes the clues for Jeopardy. And when I was younger, I did want to be on the Clue Crew. That was like one of my dream jobs, was to be a writer for the Clue Crew.
Being behind the scenes and sometimes on camera, like once every 5 years, sounds like the vibe that both of us would enjoy regarding a television show.
Yeah. I would love to do like a producer role. Like one of the current producers, Sarah, she is like maybe she does like video clues, or she does Inside Jeopardy Live, Inside Jeopardy, the podcast. You know, she's like the face of Jeopardy, but not on not the host, right? Like she's like the producer face, along with Michael Davies. Okay, so that's sort of like the Jeopardy structure of it all. The real thing that moved me to record this episode, even beyond the Jeopardy live show that I went to, is two things. One, for the last 6 months or so, Mac and I have been playing a game a game within a game, if you will, where while we watch Jeopardy, if you remember, right before the final commercial break, before they cut to Final Jeopardy, they show you the category for Final Jeopardy. And during that time, contestants get a pen and paper. They do not get calculators. Ken Jennings confirmed this at the show last night. They get a pen and paper to do the math for their bets, and then they place their bets or their wagers for Final Jeopardy. We play a game where we use the final commercial break to guess the answer to Final Jeopardy based only on the category. So let's say, for example, the category is computers. You're going to guess what the answer might be. If the category is computers, what might the answer be?
I have no idea. The thing that came to my head is not the computer in front of me. It's Donald Trump alleviating tariffs on computers specifically.
Great. So the answer might be like China, right?
Exactly.
Right? So
exactly.
So we play this game, and not once, not twice, but 3 times in the last 3 months, I have correctly guessed Final Jeopardy based only on the category.
And this is just like you knowing the people writing the clues better than other people.
I'm starting to think that it is a cumulative effect. Yes, I have watched so much Jeopardy that like it's also about like it kind of like thinking about like what's in the conversation right now around that. and what might come up, right? So that's also some of like the strategy of Jeopardy, right? Is like being able to see a category and guessing like, okay, what information do I think is going to be contained here? Some categories are straightforward. They tell you what it is going to be. Some are more obscure or obtuse. Lots of them are like wordplay, and those are pretty straightforward, right? Or include the initials. You see quotation, note the quotations around DR. All correct responses will include DR, right? That kind of thing. The three that I have gotten correct. One, the category was historical disasters, and I guessed Krakatoa, and it was in fact Krakatoa. And I guessed it because I last year devoured the Veronica Speedwell novels, and that the explosion of Krakatoa in the 1880s plays a like background role in those novels. It was like something this character was present for, and so I was like, I bet it's this. Another category was acting families, and I guessed that it was something to do with River Phoenix, and it was in fact the Phoenix family. And then the last one, the category was migration. And this is one where I think that sometimes the rule of Jeopardy is the first thing that you think of, the thing that seems the most obvious, is the answer. There are sometimes tricky clues. There are sometimes tricky answers. There are sometimes really, really obscure knowledge that are parts of the game. There is no doubt that that is true. But sometimes it is just about getting the association fast enough, right? So if the answer is the category is migration, the answer that I guessed, monarch butterflies. The migration that I see and experience every year.
That's just not where I would have gone. That's wild.
Okay, well, that makes 3 so far this year. I'll let you know if I get any more. But I think that's the other thing that I find fascinating about the clues is like the clues are also, I mean, this was like also true in academic team because I, of course, it's taken us this far into the episode for me to be like, yes, I did academic team in high school. You were all right. Of course, I love Jeopardy. Mm-hmm. In fact, if you did academic team in high school and you hate Jeopardy, I want to hear about that because I want to hear why that's true.
Weirdo.
Freaking sicko. So the clues often contain like it seems obvious to say the clues contain the information that you need. But the clues themselves aren't always, you don't have to know the answer. Does that make sense? If you have the general knowledge in your mind and you take the category and the context that the clue is offering you, you don't have to know it. You just have to be able to do the association.
Yeah, you just have to get, this is, I mean, whenever I am like playing Jeopardy or like Wheel of Fortune with the television, this is 9 times out of 10 the way that I'm getting something right. Not I'm actually thinking terribly hard about it.
Yeah. And that is the trick, right? Like is knowing what you need to skill build your knowledge around. Like, so, and the way that you qualify for Jeopardy, right, is by taking the Jeopardy test. There is what's now called the Jeopardy Anytime test, which, as described, you can take anytime within a 1-year period, except for Jeopardy. If I were to take the Jeopardy Anytime test today, I would not qualify to take the Anytime test again until April 12th, 2026. Unless I took the test on May 30th, 2026, which is Jeopardy, which is the day that anyone can take the Anytime test. What it does do, though, is reset your year to the next time you could take the test would be March 30th, 2027. So you can take the Anytime test. There is also like an additional test that you can take. And from there, then, like, if you get a certain number of questions right, you go to, like, the auditions, basically. And you audition, and that process is, like, both trivia-based and also, like, sort of, like, screen testing-based. How will you do in that kind of environment? Oh, I almost forgot. Alex Trebek guest starred on an episode of X-Files. He was a cultural icon. He guest starred on a lot of TV shows, honestly.
What X-Files episode was he on?
Oh my God. It is, he is in the X-Files episode, Jose Chung's From Outer Space, season 3, episode 20.
You're feeling very sleepy, very relaxed. Alex Trebek, the game show host?
Yeah, it's an inexplicably weird episode, quite frankly. And that's saying something about X-Files, to be clear. This sort of free association, right, that the game relies on is also what makes the show fun sometimes, right? Because it means that guessing is good strategy. Depending on, like, there's so much strategy, and they're like that I can't even begin to talk about it. There are, I mean, the Jeopardy Reddit forums are huge. They are robust. People are posting there regularly. It is for many people on those boards like lifelong dream to get on Jeopardy. And I think that is true for many people, right? So it is also like a pretty exclusive club, even though it is many, many seasons. 182 episodes times 3 is like 400 people, you know, or more per season play Jeopardy. It's still like a pretty limited list of people in the grand scheme of things. This free association, though, leads to some of the Jeopardy great and worst moments. So I'm going to share this link with you here for you to watch.
Plurals that don't end in S for 4.
Moose. Jack.
What are meese?
No. No, Jack. Alicia.
What is moose?
What are
What
two
are
moose?
moose?
Yes,
All
that's
right.
correct.
No, Jack.
Wow.
No. No, Jack. That's not it. This kind of moment happens every now and then where someone gives an answer where you're just like, okay. And why was that what you said? And this is one of them, but there are many, many of them. This kind of thing happens often. The other thing that is in this video, if you were to watch this compilation or you were to check out other compilations, is Ken Jennings is a phenomenal Jeopardy host. He is so good, and he's so funny. He's just a very quippy person generally. But one of the other things that was true, even when Alex was the host of the show, is that sometimes the answers to the questions are in categories like hip hop or rappers or I don't know, any number of things where you wouldn't expect Ken Jennings or Alex Trebek to say these things. And that's part of the fun of it too. Ken's responses, the little anecdotes that he adds, the kind of attitude that he gives people when it's not right, or when there are little, missteps, is just adds so much to the humor of the show. Though, like, it's not without its own version of controversy. I don't know if you remember that Ken Jennings used to be, like, a prolific Twitter user. And there were several, like, scandals at various points of, like, Ken Jennings has popped off at this person or that person. He did have a very tragic tweet, years ago at this point, where he basically said you hate to see a beautiful person in a wheelchair, which is like a big oof.
Oh my God.
And
Ken.
I think that he would not say that kind of thing now, if only because he has better PR. But yeah, I also think that there's some of this that is like, Ken Jennings is a person who has come of age with the internet and who was not necessarily, I don't know that, anybody goes on to Jeopardy expecting to become a household name, right? But it is certainly true that if you do well enough, you can become a household name. Now, if you're like me, your list of household names for Jeopardy winners is very long and includes people like Drew Goins. So Drew is the other person that I want to kind of round out this conversation with. Drew was part of this show last night, and Drew's journey on Jeopardy is one that I think really is emblematic of why Jeopardy is like special and fun. So Drew got a question. He was really trying, he was doing really well in the game. He got his first Double Jeopardy right, or Daily Double right, in Double Jeopardy. He found the second Daily Double in Double Jeopardy, and he looked at the board in front of him, and he went all in for a second time, and he lost. So he comes back in Second Chance, and he winds up being one of the Second Chance winners. And then he wins Champions Wild, or gets second in Champions Wild card. And so he doesn't qualify for Tournament of Champions. And so the thing that really, like, Drew is a fan favorite by this point already. He is funny, he is charismatic, he is young. He was living in Hawaii at the time of his taping of his first runs. He's now actually a Washington, D.C. resident again. He works at the Washington Post. He has a Washington Post podcast. Like, he is a journalist. He's like a very interesting person. And then something remarkable happens, which is that Lisa Ann Walter, who is supposed to appear in the Tournament of Champions, can't do it because of the Abbott Elementary filming schedule. And they offer the position in the Tournament of Champions to Drew instead. So he gets to play Tournament of Champions because Lisa Ann stepped back, and he made it all the way to the semis in Tournament of Champions. So his like Cinderella story here as this like second chance winner, and then, you know, JIT and the Champions Wild card and the Tournament of Champions is the story of like how Jeopardy has figured out how to reinvest in this ecosystem that they have created, not just of fans, but of players and of people who play along at home, right? And the understanding that those of us who play along at home, those of us who are regular watchers of this show, are invested in and care about seeing familiar faces, even though the format of the show is fundamentally new players every day. And it's just really fun to see them thriving by building these moments around their fan favorites. Undoubtedly, the best moment of the night last night was they said to Drew, who was, on stage and had been giving an interview about his experience on Jeopardy, that they had a video or an audio message from Lisa Ann Walter. And by the time she was about 3 sentences into this audio message, in my mind, I was like, she's backstage. Because, like, I could hear the difference between a mic'd audio and a recorded audio, right? And she was indeed. So she finished what she was saying, and she walked out onto stage. And he didn't even notice that she was there initially. And so she got to do the sort of, like, tap him on the shoulder, and he turned around and had this huge, just like flabbergasted reaction. It was his first time meeting her. They'd never really had a conversation before. It was always like facilitated through the producers, or like him giving her a shout out on his episodes, being like, oh, I love her. On one episode, he wore the many faces kinds of shirts that have like all the pictures of someone and their name really big at the top. He wore one of those under his dress shirt on an episode, like in honor of her. I don't know. I don't even know what the point is, Matt. Jeopardy, obviously, I've been talking at you about it for 45 minutes at this point. An hour at this point. Great, even better.
Sorry, I'm now looking at a picture of him in a crop top that says, "I'll be taking cute for $200."
Yes. Also, he's very cute. I think that, so many of the things that we talk about on this show are like about a safe place to land, or like wrap you in a warm hug, or like scratch that part of your brain. I think the thing that keeps me coming back to Jeopardy is like, it is good exercise for my brain. It is low stakes for me to watch. It does not build anxiety or frustration for me. I genuinely love playing along at home as much as I think people enjoy playing on the show. And I think that that's rare. I think in today's game shows, not to get like too much into the game show discourse, because I'm sure you have no idea what game shows other than Jeopardy and Wheel of Fortune are like particularly like, or outside of the ones that air on primetime. But if you are someone like me who loves game shows enough to do things like watch Game Show Network on occasion, one of the grossest things that has started to happen in the TV game show space is that they are all taking on slot machine models or things that are very, very clearly pipelines to slot machine designs. And it sucks. It sucks really big. And in that era of gaming that is really driven by greed and economy, the simple purity of Jeopardy is like really valuable to me. That's not to say that there aren't Jeopardy players who haven't won millions of dollars. Ken Jennings won over $2 million. Matt Amodio won over $1 million. Like, people have started to make bigger and bigger bets on the show and like have bigger and bigger money records. But at its core, the majority of players are walking away with the majority of winners are walking away with somewhere between $30,000 and $50,000, right? The other thing is that Jeopardy doesn't necessarily do the twist the knife of like I need this money to pay for my healthcare, right? The kinds of things that I've talked about before that turn me off when people talk about them in Deal or No Deal Island or even on Survivor, right? That are hard for me to sit through. You do get anecdotes from people, and especially when people are multiple game winners, they'll ask them what they're going to do with their winnings. But it is much rarer that you hear someone tell a medical sob story. And I think that that's to the producer's credit, right? Even if that is what people wind up doing with the money because of the fucked up system that we live in, the anecdotes that they have them share, honestly, the anecdotes are sometimes the worst part of the show, and I didn't even really get into them, but...
Yeah, so what's funny is like the episodes that I remember as a kid are a lot of the like college tournament ones.
Yeah.
So when I think about the anecdotes, I think about like the college kids giving those anecdotes and it just being extremely awkward.
Yeah. Some people really rock them.
Yeah, I have
Some
question, and it's really, I guess, an opinion question. Do you think that one of the reasons the show doesn't deal in like emotional sob stories like about, you know, people who like really need the money to live and all of that is because of the nature of the show as like extremely academically motivated and like the self-selecting like contestants on the show?
I think that could be part of it. There are certainly people who are just sort of regular. I think there are just sort of regular people who go on, right? Like that are not necessarily as like academically motivated, but people who are just like good at trivia.
And the thing that I'm saying that I'm not saying there is that like you're going to self-select for wealthier people.
Right.
You
know, I think that is true to some extent, but I always think about like, so one of the things that they say is like what people's occupations are when they are on the show. So it's like they say your name, they say your occupation, and they say where you're from. And a lot of people are bartenders or accounts payable manager, right? Like it is not necessarily an overrepresentation of people who are college professors. Now, there might be like an overrepresentation of people who are professors or doctors or more professionally motivated amongst multiple day winners. I have looked at some of that, but a lot of the individual players are themselves not necessarily from that kind of background, in my experience of watching anyway.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, it's just a show. I don't know. It doesn't have to be a big problem or anything like that. No. It's just a show that like is, it's extremely academic and like academia has some of these problems, right?
Yeah.
And so it just, I don't know, just strikes me as like as unique among game shows, especially among primetime game shows, right?
Yeah, for sure. I think there's like also the sort of iconic every person nature of Jeopardy. The Jeopardy is in every home in America, has a certain appeal in that way, right? I don't know.
Yeah.
I just really love it. It makes my brain feel calm in a way that is really like important and preserving in these trying times.
I mean, this is why I watch Magic the Gathering Commander gameplay.
Yeah.
Like it's just people like literally my favorite magic show is called Commander at Home.
Love.
Which the whole vibe of that show, the entire like it is well produced. They've got like a crew behind cameras. The point of the show is for you to feel like you're sitting at their kitchen table playing Magic the Gathering with them.
Yeah, I love that.
That is relaxing for me when like my brain's too busy to think about watching Severance, right? Or like nothing sounds good and like I just need to like eat dinner and turn my brain off. I can just like sit down. Like that's I get the same thing from that you seem to get from Jeopardy.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, I think that there's something special too about seeing something, I guess, like for me, watching something that is also still stimulating for my brain, even if it is more passive, even if it is not like it feels like God, this is so nerdy or stupid to say, but like it's like the crossword puzzles of TV, you know?
I don't think that's nerdy or stupid. I think it's incredibly apt.
Well, it's Wheel of Fortune exists, which is really the crossword puzzle.
Yes,
of game shows. Other than game shows that are more explicitly based on crosswords, of which there are several. But the
I mean, Wordle was a game show before it was Wordle.
Yeah. But it fulfills that same sort of space for me, where you get to see folks take on categories that, when you are playing along at home, sometimes challenge you, sometimes make you laugh, sometimes make you think, right? Like you're really like trying to get in there or remembering it, or it's on the tip of my tongue. It's on the tip of my tongue. You know, I enjoy that. I enjoy that sensation. And then I think the other thing that I haven't even really gone into, and, you know, we can kind of close it out here, is that as with everything, one of the things that I am always looking for in my shows is a clear and enthusiastic welcoming of people who are like me. And Jeopardy is absolutely extremely queer, right? And extremely like, I mean, I say extremely. I don't know about behind the scenes, but there are lots of trans people who play Jeopardy and who never for a moment in their Jeopardy appearances from the Jeopardy staff are misgendered or mistreated or have had their gender questioned or poked fun at on stage. The anecdotes are never about that part of them. And while I'm not a like, we don't have to talk about it all the time person, I want to fucking talk about it all the time, right? It is really nice to see an understanding of inclusion, and that the show has over time pushed itself to have a more diverse set of players behind the podium, and not just let it continue to be dominated by cishet white men, which were very much overrepresented in the earlier years of Jeopardy. So
yeah,
that is all.
Is that a change in like the post Trebek years, or was he contributing to that change as well?
Very true for Alex Trebek as well. Yeah, not a change.
I mean, that tracks with my memory of watching it regularly, in that like I saw people on Jeopardy I didn't see in my life, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, I that's cool. And also the idea that like we learn about these people, but and they're just kind of like allowed to present the form of themselves they want to on stage. And,
yeah.
And they are there to play Jeopardy.
Exactly. We're here to play Jeopardy. It's not about any of the rest of it.
Anything else?
No, I'm just such a huge fan of the show, obviously. And they do such a good job. I'm going to keep saying the same things. They keep it so fresh for a show that is fundamentally really nerdy. And it's good television, and it makes me feel good. And I am always thinking about it.
Sorry, my brain is poisoned. You said it makes me feel good, and I said in my head I heard busted makes me feel good.
I hate you.
This is what happens.
This is the last episode of our show, guys. Matt and I are breaking up. It's over between us.
It really can't be the last episode of the show because Andor comes out in less than 2 weeks. Thank you for telling me about Jeopardy.
You're welcome.
I do kind of want to watch some Jeopardy now.
Well, hey, I have it on my DVR. I have literally 3 years of it on my DVR if you want to come over and watch it.
I have a way to watch anything that has been recorded and put on the internet ever. And for some reason I still pay for some streaming services.
LOL.
But yeah, I might actually like watch some of that. I'll have to get your opinions on some better runs to watch.
Okay. Yeah, I'll let you know some of my faves.
Yeah, maybe we can put some of those in show notes.
Yeah, I'll definitely.
Yeah. If not, we'll talk about it in Discord after this.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, then let's get out of here. We're going to go eat some hot pot here in a second. So you should all be jealous of us. Hey, AC, where can people find you online?
You can find me online at acfaci.com and acfaci.bisky.social. Haha, I got it right that time.
You can find me at matthorton.live. All the links to everything are there. You can find the show at can'tletitgo.gay, including a link to the Discord if you want to come hang out with us and tell us about your Jeopardy watching experiences, your obsession with Jeopardy, maybe your favorite contestants, or to tell us that you've never watched Jeopardy. That's also okay.
I'll recommend some YouTube clips for you to watch.
Yeah. I still have Instagram, Threads, and TikTok in here. We don't do those anymore. You can find the show on Blue Sky at can'tletitgo.gay.
Yeah.
You can also find The Worst Garbage at theworstgarbage.online. That is our show and a bunch of our friends' shows like .zip, shows like Frog of the Week, Girl Mode, Into the Aether, Next Portable Console, NPC, Pause and Clause, and Video Game Potimism, as well as some video shows like My Flow State, Steven's Memory Card Manuscript, and Brendan's Wavelengths. It is a cool place and is one of my favorite places on the internet, so you should come hang out in the Discord with us.
It's fun, we promise.
Yeah. Thanks to the people that helped make the show. Thank you, Scout, for making our art. Pay her to make you art at ko-fi.com/humblegoat. And thanks to my friend Ethan, who is revolverocelot.bsky.social. If you want to support us financially, you can do that at ko-fi.com/Matt Horton. We're at a place with the show where it's paying for itself, but also that Ko-fi supports my work on YouTube, on the show Flow State, and the other things I do on YouTube. So if you're into any of that,
and can't put it down, etc.
Can't put it down, all the above. Actually, that's like the main benefit you get. If you're looking for something to get out of it, when you sign up, you can get access to this show, but about video games. Can't put it down.
Yeah.
Actually, do have a hint for next time, and we've already kind of said it, which is that next time, we're going to be talking about Andor Season 2. Whatever amount of that show is out by then, and we may or may not have a special guest for that episode.
Hey, so, can't wait.
Yeah, we will talk to you next time.
Okay, bye.
TWG, the worst garbage, online.